Hello Tech Pros, episode 154.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started.
Hello Tech Pros, this is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to be back with you this Sunday Unplugged, to first of all apologize for last Sunday because I felt like I dropped the ball. Last Sunday, I started talking about role-playing games, and then afterwards I listened to it and I was like, Chad, that had nothing to do with being unplugged. That was like the lessons that I learned from being unplugged applicable to business. So if you didn't catch that episode, it was called The 10 Business Lessons That I Learned in Playing Role-Playing Games. So you guys know, I kind of have this habit of blending work and play, which is fun, which is great. But every time I'm trying to talk about play, I end up doing a business podcast. It's just, man, I feel like I dropped the ball sometimes on this being unplugged. I'm still struggling with this area. And this is why I do this podcast, is to remind me weekly, at least once a week, why we need to take a break, why we need to put down the podcast, why we need to put down the business stuff, the entrepreneur stuff, the code, the whatever it is that you're working on all week, and focus on something fun that has nothing to do with business, nothing to do with work, nothing to do with entrepreneurship, and just something solely focused on fun. So if you want to learn a little bit about business and work and combining the things that you learn from fun into taking those lessons learned into the business, you can check out last week's episode at hellotechpros.com/147. That was episode 147. Today, this week, this Sunday, right now today, we're going to be talking about role-playing games, but specifically around the fun things, or maybe not the fun things, but the things that you have to do, the prerequisites to the fun things. So I've had a question recently from the audience. Jacob asked me, Chad, how do I get my campaign started? So I've got some friends together and I'm trying to kick off my campaign, and I've just got some beginner, like game master questions for you on how to get this campaign started, so that first of all, I have a great campaign idea, and second of all, that it's engaging and the players want to come back and stick around. Now, a little background here is Jacob was actually in one of my campaigns that lasted for about 4 years, and that was absolutely the longest, single running campaign that I've ever played in my life. And it was awesome. It was the most fun of all. For me personally, and the reason why it was the most fun of all was because I took this group of individuals that knew nothing about role-playing games and put them together. We started a campaign, and we were able to keep that group together week after week consistently for 4 years, and we just had a blast. We had so much fun. It was a mixed group of some family members and some friends, and it was just an amazing time. So he said, I want to put a campaign like that together for my friends, but I've tried it in the past and it hasn't worked. Dude, I'm sorry. It hasn't worked for me either. I've played in a lot of games, and most of them, unfortunately only last a few weeks or a couple of episodes before they tend to fall apart. Life gets in the way. And so I thought I would spend this episode, maybe we'll do a series on campaign generation, like role-playing game campaign generation 101, a series of 3 or 4 episodes on it. But starting this episode with how you get a campaign kicked off the ground, right? How you do like a Kickstarter, not to raise funds, but to raise interest in people wanting to join your campaign, and have that interest where everybody's goals are so resonated together, where they're so combined that people want to come back for more and more. And so, like, as we go through the series, I think we'll do this for a few weeks, and as we go through this series, hopefully we'll get an awesome campaigns kicked off the ground, and we'll have some tips and tricks on how to keep the players coming back for more. So this specific episode, I think what we're going to do is focus on the position of you want to be the game master, right? You want to host this game. It is your idea. You want to put it together. Because really, if you want to play in somebody else's game, it's a lot easier. The barrier to entry is next to nothing. All you got to do is ask your friends who play, hey, can I play too? And most of the time they'll say, yeah, sure, come on in. We got an empty chair. There are occasions where you can come in as a recurring non-player character, right? So a recurring side character who's not one of the main stars, right? If you can't commit to being there every week or every month or every time that they play, but you want to be around every now and then, you can be one of the like sidekick heroes, right? Or one of the guest stars, right? So just think of a television series that you watch where the television series has the 3 or 4 actors that are there for every single episode. They are the main characters. And then they have other characters that come in as like guest stars, and they'll have like really powerful characters that add to a lot of the show, but they're not there every week. They're just there every now and then when it makes sense for those actors, when it makes sense for the show, when it makes sense for the story. And your game can be the same way. So you could potentially get in as a guest character, as a recurring guest character on somebody else's campaign. And then if it works out, if you like them, if they like you, if it fits with everybody's schedule and so forth, you might be able to find yourself into a permanent position where your character is now a permanent member of the everyday recurring episodes, right? So we can talk more on that later, on being a guest on someone else's campaign or being a recurring member of somebody else's campaign. This one is going to be talking about, okay, so you want to start an RPG. So you want to start a role-playing game. And specifically, I'm talking about a tabletop role-playing game, right? Because there's video games, right? Computer games, there's console games, there's mobile games. And I'm not going to dive into those because that's a whole nother genre. I'm super, super passionate about the tabletop role-playing games. And my voice is already going out. So this week I've struggled with a cold. Our whole family got a cold this last week, so I'm still struggling there. So I'm going to be drinking a lot of juice and water here, so forgive me as I kind of take little pauses. Okay, so we're going to start a role-playing game, and you want to be the host. Now, why do you want to be the host? Let's talk about that for a minute. Is it because that you have this awesome idea of this amazing story or this amazing concept that you want to play, and you want to make sure that the players follow your rules? Or is it that you want to be involved in a group, but nobody else is being proactive and putting stuff together? Or is it you played in a game in the past, but there was something about it that just wasn't it? It wasn't the right fit for you. Maybe the way that the game master ran her campaign was a little different from the way that you wanted to be run. Maybe there was some preferential treatment between, a boyfriend and a girlfriend and not all the players. I've been in those situations. Maybe it was just a wrong genre, right? Maybe it was high fantasy, and that's cool, but maybe you like more, modern or kind of contemporary role-playing. I mean, to each their own, right? They each have their own style. So really think about the reason why you want to do it. If it's because you haven't found a game that really, really connects with your core essence, or has the genre or has the type of characters, this type of story that you want to be a part of, then that's awesome. That's cool. If you are a drama-filled, storytelling-filled role player, and you love really get into character details and voice acting and all these other aspects of it, but the rest of the players around the campaigns that you've played in the past are more like they're hack and slashers. They just want to do dungeon crawls. They just want to do min-max out their characters and try to beat the biggest, baddest monsters. And just, okay, yeah, we have to have this plot point in order to get to the monsters, but it's really about the monsters. Or vice versa. You want to just roll dice and kill stuff all day long, but the other folks around the table want to spend hours and hours and days in character role-playing scenes that they never actually get to combat. Again, to each their own. So if you're trying to connect with a group of people who share that same level of interest, that's awesome. Absolutely, we can help. If you just want to run things your way and you're tired of doing what everybody else is doing, then that's a crappy approach to it. Because there's nothing worse than a game master that tries to railroad the scenario, a game master that tries to railroad all the players into exactly following what he or she wants them to do. Where it's all about the NPCs, it's all about the monsters, it's all about the players, the characters that the game master runs. Those are crappy games to play in. Like from a player's perspective, it's crappy. So again, kind of going back to some of those stuff that we learned in last week's episode, those business terminology stuff, it's very much applicable in this setting about facilitation and leadership, right? You're going to be that person that brings everybody together for that common cause to have fun and to play games and to tell a story and to roll dice and all that kind of stuff. But you're not going to be that person that's just going to railroad everything. Okay, can we agree to that? If we can't agree to that and you want to be that railroaded person, go find another podcast, because I don't want you. I don't want you around. Sorry, but go away. Okay, so you do want to really connect with people and not just force them to play the game that you want to play, but you want to find other people who want to play the same type of game as you want to play. So the hardest part in this whole thing is finding a group, finding the right group of people that want to play the same game that you want to play, right? Just like when you were kids, when you were outside and you wanted to play football and they didn't want to play football, they wanted to play soccer, right? Or you wanted to play baseball and they wanted to go play role-playing games like I did when I was a kid, right? You got to have the right group of people that have the like minds and like shared interests and the shared common goals of what we want to do together. And that can be hard. It's a lot like kind of dating for a while. You have to just put yourself out there. You got to meet a lot of people. You got to greet a lot of people. You got to play games with a lot of people. And eventually you're going to find, one person here, two people here, a small group here, and stitch different people together. You're going to bring different persons together from different communities that you act in, that you serve in, that you work in, that you play in. And you're going to identify slowly over the course of a while, identify several people that may be potential players for this game that you have in mind. So basically, when you're trying to put this group together, there's two ways that you can approach it. You can approach it with people that you already know or people that you don't know. And there's two kind of strategies for getting involved here. So the first one, and I don't really recommend one or the other. I haven't ever hosted a game like a tabletop face-to-face game with people that I didn't know, but I've played in them, and they're both fun. Personally, just because of my social anxiety problems, that I've talked about on the show, I prefer, in the past, I've definitely preferred that close-knit group of friends that I know or that my other friends know, and they bring people in to the table. So people that you know versus people that you don't know. And I'm going to start with talking about, maybe we'll start with people that you don't know, because I think that's not going to take me very long to talk about. So if you want to play with people that you don't know, if you're trying to get a group together and you just don't have a group of friends that likes role-playing games and likes the thought of role-playing games, you guys can't even get a board game group together. It's tough. It's tough. It's really hard to find this close-knit group. So it may be easier at the very beginning if you're just getting into this to start with people you don't know. And if you have, anxiety, social anxiety like I've had in the past, this can be tough. So what you do is you just want to look for local groups of people who are already meeting in public places. I definitely recommend public places like gaming shops. If you've ever been to like board game shops where they sell games, they sell role-playing games, they sell books, they sell miniatures, they sell cards, collector cards and all this kind of stuff. Usually these places have, so in these locations, in these shops, they usually have a place where they play the games in a public setting form, right? So many of the times these shops have like an extra room or a nook, a corner in the side of the shop where they have tables and people get together and they play at the tables in the shop, in the gaming room, in a public setting. And it's usually open format where people are available to come and go. So what I would do is go into these shops and check with the shop owner or the shop manager and just say, hey, do you have gaming groups? Do you have role-playing game groups that come and meet here already? Most of the time, they're going to say, yeah, we have several different groups that come in here throughout the week, right? So we have a group that plays Pathfinder. We have a group that, there's 2 or 3 different groups that play Dungeons and Dragons. There's a group that plays Star Wars. There's a group that plays GURPS, right? There's different groups coming in throughout the time. So you'll have to check with them. And then once you find out that these games are happening, then you can potentially get in touch with the game masters of those groups or the leaders of those groups and say, hey, I would like to play too. Do you mind if I sit in a couple of sessions and just listen? What time do you guys meet? Is it a great time? Can I show up? And most of the time, folks are completely awesome about it. They're very open. They love having guests. But it is difficult. If you're running a game at a gaming shop, you've got people coming and going all the time. So you might have a core group of 2 or 3 or 4 people that play every week and are committed and are there. And you have other people who just kind of drop in and out. And that can be awesome, or it can be very disruptive depending on how the person is running their games. So usually the people running the games at these gaming shops, they have maybe a limit, a number of players, like maybe a maximum of 6 players or 7 players at the table. And, they say, hey, it's kind of first come, first serve, or here's my core group, and they have like first choice. And then anybody else who shows up after that, we have 2 or 3 kind of open seats available. Then that's great too. Then you're welcome to join us. So check with the owner, check with the manager of these stores, see when these groups are available, what their terms of service, what their meeting schedule is, what their rules are for who is allowed to play and how you play and so forth. But that's a great way to meet new people and get involved and really just kind of check out a session, check out a game to see if it sounds like an interesting game, check out mechanics of a new type of game that you've never played before. Check out genres, like role-playing genres. Like if you always played fantasy, but you've never played like a modern contemporary action, like spy versus spy kind of game, then that might be kind of cool just to sit in on and say, okay, before I invest in a lot of time and money and effort planning a game or getting involved in another game, maybe I could just sit in on someone else's and see how it goes. So through this experience, if you're lucky, if you have a great group, then you're just going to hit it right out of the park and you're going to land there and you're going to be like, wow, this is awesome. I'm going to dive into the middle of this campaign. The guys and girls around this table are now like bestie friends with me because we all just hit it off. However, that doesn't always happen. A lot of times when we're meeting new people in no matter what setting, there's going to be a handful of people that really, really get you and you really, really get and you connect on a deep level. And then there's going to be the other spectrum of the people that you just can't stand. They're just, like if you have to spend 10 more minutes around this person, you're going to vomit, right? We've all been in these situations. The good news is that this is not work. You're not bound to these relationships. These are public setting games where you can feel free to just, you know what? Hey, this is not my table. Thanks for allowing me to play. Thanks for allowing me to sit in. I've got other stuff that I need to be doing, like painting my garage, right? Or anything else. And so you can use this opportunity to test out the game and test out the community and also test out like individual interactions. A lot of times, honestly, in my situation, in the groups that I've been involved in, there have usually been, I think on every single kind of group public setting game that I've played, there have been 1 or 2 people that I was like, yeah, I could definitely see me playing with these individuals long term, like maybe playing here at the shop for a couple of months, but then maybe us starting our own campaign, or maybe me inviting 1 or 2 people from this small group to a private setting, like into a game that I've already got running, or to a game that we're thinking about starting, or maybe they invite me right into a more private game where it's not open to the public and random people coming in and out. And then there's going to be other people that you don't want involved in your games, you don't want to play with outside of this group setting, but they're not bad enough where you just want to run away or tell them off or whatever. But it's just like they're not your jam. They're not going to be great friends for you for whatever reason. They're just not a great fit, not a great personality fit, and that's cool. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. You certainly don't have to call it out and be like, ooh, you're gross, you're icky, you're annoying, you're an a-hole, I don't want to be around you. Just be like, play the game, have fun, and leave that relationship as kind of casual. You only see them, for a couple hours every couple of weeks, but the other people are so much fun that it's great. Okay, cool. So that's the open to public setting. What I would not recommend, is someplace like Craigslist, right, where it's completely random people that say, come to our private event, come to my house, come to this abandoned warehouse to play, right? We just think safety first, guys. I mean, it's really, really common sense. If there's a public forum out on the internet or out on social media or out on Craigslist or whatever, and they're inviting people to a public group, like to a restaurant or to a gaming store or something like that, cool, check it out. But just be very cautious of your surroundings. Be very cautious of who you're talking to on the other end. I don't care how old you are. If you're 14 or if you're 42, bad stuff happens to good people. So just be aware. Just be aware of that. And just always, when you're meeting new people, I would suggest doing it in a public setting. Okay, so that's enough about stranger danger, role-playing gamers. So in just a moment, we'll talk about how to get your group of friends, your group of people that you already know, friends, family, coworkers, folks like that, into your game. But first, we're going to take that quick break and thank our sponsors.
This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by me, Chad Bostic. As an enterprise IT leader, I've gotten the opportunity to solve a number of different business problems, including field worker productivity, back office process efficiencies, enterprise system integrations, big data analysis, resource management, and IT complexity reduction. Each project comes with its own unique challenge, whether it be distributed teams, change management, stakeholder buy-in, availability of subject matter experts, or just getting one technology to play nice with others. Let me know what business problem is keeping you up at night and how you'd like me to help. Go to chadbostic.com and click the contact button, or text "Hello Chad," all one word, to 44222. That's chadbostic.com, chadbostic.com, and click the contact button, or text "Hello Chad," all one word, HELLOCHAD, to 44222.
Okay, so you've decided that you have now a list of players that could potentially play in your game that you want to put together. You have some friends that you've known for a long time. You have some family members that might be interested. Maybe you've met some new people that you've been playing with in a casual group setting game, in a casual public setting game at a gaming store. And now you know a handful of people, maybe 6 to 10 people that you could potentially pull together in this game. The next thing you need to do is think about the style of game that you want to play. What is the game that you want to play? And what we're going to do is try to match the personalities and the objectives and the schedules for all of those potential players to the thing that you're trying to put together. And it's very difficult, especially the older we get, the more responsibilities, the more things that are going on in our life. We have jobs, we have kids, we have college, we have, overtime, we have life stuff that just gets in the way, we have other commitments, we have other groups of friends, we have our spouses' activities, the kids have extracurricular stuff. Life gets really, really busy. So it's going to be difficult, or it can, in many situations, be very difficult to get the right type of players together to play the right type of game. So first of all, what I would do is just invite folks together and just create a nice, open, inviting host-type atmosphere where you're hosting games that don't necessarily have to be like a campaign. like something, an ongoing campaign where it's critical that everybody's there every week. So we're going to start with just a minimum viable game, a minimum viable gaming group, and that's casual games just with board games, with card games, with light one-off role-playing games, just to kind of judge the stickability of this group. When I say stickability, I mean people are going to stick around. They're going to show up. They're going to be there. They're going to be there for the appropriate length of time. They're going to show up on time or early. And they're going to... You guys are going to be having so much fun that everybody will be sad if they miss next week. And so they will always want to be coming back. So it's your job as the host. Don't worry about the game for right now. For just a couple minutes as you're thinking through this stuff, don't worry about the game. Don't worry about the mechanics. Who's going to play what character. Your really, really first job is to be a welcoming host that's just friendly and open and inviting and having people into your home or having people into your space. And regardless of what's going on in the game, you are there to facilitate a great time for everybody. You are there to make sure that everybody's having a good time. That's your number one goal as a game master. Make sure that everybody's having a wonderful time. And so that can be very easy if everybody's goals are aligned. That can be very easy if everybody's personalities are aligned. That can be very easy if everybody's schedules align. But unfortunately, this is the real world, and those things rarely all align 100%. So, you know what? You've got some people that have other commitments, and they can only be there every now and then. You've got other people who are really, really passionate about manga or about high fantasy, right? And other people just absolutely can't stand that stuff. And they're like, dude, I don't want to hear about your Japanese whatever, your little anime junk. It's annoying. I hate that stuff. And other people are going to be like, well, I like a little bit of Lord of the Rings. I like a bit of Star Wars. I like a bit of action and robots. And I don't know, I'm pretty easygoing and go with the flow. So within all these personalities, it's awesome. It's a wonderful thing. I love diversity. I love having different personalities in a group. But what you're trying to do is just, create this environment, this recurring setting where people are getting together just for the excuse of we're playing games and we're here to have fun. And as long as you make having fun the number one thing, then evolving into that long-term campaign that you want to play sooner or later down the line, that will happen at a much more comfortable level. It will happen at a much more inviting level, and it won't feel like some people are excluded and some people are like, okay, we're getting together, but we're going to be playing the game that I want to play. So, me and Bobby want to play this game, and everybody else can either sit there and put up with it, or they can go do something else, right? No, we don't want that. We want something that's going to be great for the whole group. So as you're playing these other games, as you're playing board games, you can kind of get a feel for the different personalities and who likes what, who likes to be silly, who likes to joke, who likes to interrupt, who is very, very serious and very, very competitive, who is very collaborative and wants to make sure that everybody's involved in the process and has their turn or has their say at the table, who is just there for the food and the drinks, right? And throughout this experience of just hanging out with friends, hanging out with family, and just being involved with each other, you're going to see what's going to work for some groups and some not. So then when you come to the decision where you're like, okay, now I'm ready to introduce this long-term campaign, the idea of a long-term campaign, you'll kind of know, you'll have a great idea in your head of who is going to be open to certain ideas and who's going to be open to other ideas. So it's completely up to you how you want to handle it. But what I like to do is, I'm that easygoing guy. I'm pretty casual. I'm pretty laid back, and I like a lot of different things, and I like a lot of different experiences, and I like to try new stuff. So my personality, if somebody was approaching me, if we were all gelling and we were all having a great time and the personalities all clicked, I don't care what game we're playing. I don't care if it's high fantasy, low fantasy, if it's science fiction, if it's robotics, if it's historical fiction, if it's drama stuff. I don't care. Just as long as everybody's cool at the table, we're all having a good time, we're all respecting one another, and it's fun, then I'm down for whatever. And hopefully you have a couple of people that are like that. And then other people are going to be very strong opinionated one way or the other. So just say, hey, this is the kind of campaign I want to run. I want to play, pick your poison, name your game. I want to play Dungeons and Dragons. I want to play Star Wars. I want to give this a try. And by knowing ahead of time the types of personalities around the table, the types of players in the group, you're going to know kind of what's probably going to go over really, really well and what's not going to go over really well. So use this time, this minimum viable game, this minimum viable gaming group with playing board games and card games to really get set up. So you know what? We're already almost at the 30-minute mark. We're going to have to break this. I'm going to turn this into a series. And so we're going to come back next week and talk about, okay, now that we've got our gaming group, now that we've kind of decided on what we're going to do, how to put the game together. But before we go, let me have a couple more ideas. I got a couple more ideas on specific, because you might be saying, what kind of board games are we talking about? Are we talking about Monopoly? Are we talking about the game of life? Like, when you say board games, what exactly do you mean? So if you're not, if you haven't been playing board games outside of Monopoly and the game of life, which are fun, which are awesome, I've got a couple of copies of both of those, and we play it here with the family. There are a slew of different types of board games that I've been introduced to over the last 10 years or so, and it can be so much fun. So here's just a short, quick list of some of my favorites. And gosh, I should probably take a picture of my gaming cabinet and put it on this post, because there's a ton of them that I'm probably going to forget to mention. But I'll take a picture of my gaming cabinet and put it with this post. This is episode 155. So if you go to hellotechpros.com/155, I'll have a picture of my gaming cabinet and all the board games that are in there. But let me give you some highlights of the ones that our groups love to play and why we love to play them, just really quick. The first one is a game called Pandemic. I love this one because it's a cooperative game, and I love this one because my wife loves this one. It is always so much fun when I can get my wife involved, where it's not just the dudes, right? The dude games where it's just me and my buddies having fun, that's fantastic. That's great. But I really love spending time with my wife and in having couples gaming groups where it's not just a bunch of dudes, but it's guys and girls and couples and friends and just a more diverse group. To me, those are always a lot more fun, and my wife is my best friend, and so any games that we play together is fantastic. Pandemic is a cooperative game, which means there's no winner or loser. Like when Chad wins, everybody else loses. And it's not teams, it's the whole team, the whole table versus this experience, versus this scenario. And so what it is you're basically the CDC who is trying to fight a virus infection or multiple virus outbreaks across the world. So there's like the board game itself is like a map of the world. And there are different cities. I don't know, there's probably 60 or 70 different cities on the map. Maybe not that much, maybe 30 or 40. They're all over the map, and there's little connection lines. So think of like a diagram where each point on this graph has multiple connections, right? So from Atlanta, there's a line down to Miami, and one to Washington, D.C., and one to L.A., and one to, I can't remember, someplace in Canada probably, maybe Mexico City. And so from that place, you kind of have to follow these lines to go to town. Each player has a certain character card, a character type, and those character types have certain jobs, they have certain functionalities, they have certain things that they do. So, like for instance, there's a medic, which allows you to cure diseases faster. There's a logistics operator, which allows you to give the other players bonuses on their moves and be able to send them out to different locations. There is like the researcher who needs fewer like victory cards in order to solve one of the problems or find a cure. So there's like, I don't know, 6 or 8 different types of these players, these characters, these units, these people that you are when you're playing the game. So everybody kind of has a role, and it's very, very much a cooperative game where you have to use the best abilities from each person in order to maximize the game and to win it. And meanwhile, these viral outbreaks are happening all over the world, and there's more and more virus things popping over. And the longer you play the game, the more rounds it takes to finish it, the harder and harder it is, like exponentially gets harder. And so it's really challenging, but it's super fun. And they've probably got 3 or 4 different expansion packs to that game as well. So I highly recommend Pandemic. I'll link all of these up in the show notes as well. Okay, the next game, another cooperative game, or a couple of different cooperative games, is inspired by Dungeons & Dragons, but it's really not D&D role-playing. It's more of a one-off box set. This cooperative game, there's I think there's 3 of them. I've got 2 of them. One is The Legend of Drizzt. That's Drizzt. So there's the Forgotten Realms fantasy campaign novel series and role-playing game series. Huge. Man, there's so much information there I can't even go into. But anyway, one of the characters and groups of characters, one of the most popular in that series is this dark elf named Drizzt, and then there's the companions of the hall that all his buddies that he hang out with, and they're exploring the world, they're fighting monsters, they're solving quests. Anyway, he has his own board game, and in this board game, you have each person is a character, kind of like a miniature Dungeons and Dragons game, where you have a character and he has different stats and he has different moves, and you are playing together, exploring a dungeon, exploring the world, and trying to solve different scenarios or different quests. So I think there's like 16 or 20 different quests that are built into the game. And you can just take them one at a time, or you can take them in random ad hoc order, or pick your best. But they're designed to be one-off games. And these games usually run, I didn't talk about Pandemic. Pandemic can run about 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes more than that, depending on like the strategy and how much discussion goes into the strategy. And then the Drizzt game, again, it depends on which scenario you pick, but I would say anywhere from maybe 20 minutes on the low end to upwards of 45 minutes or an hour on the high end for each individual game. But, if you're getting together for a couple of hours with your buddies, with your friends and family, then you can fit in a couple of these games at once. So with this Drizzt game, and there's multiple in kind of the series. There's multiple elements that all have the same mechanics. They just have different stuff. They have different powers. They have different monsters. They have different scenery. So one is The Legend of Drizzt. The other is Ashardalon. Gosh, I'm blanking out. I can't think of it. And the other is Castle Ravenloft. And all 3 of these kind of have the same mechanics. They have the same structure, just different pieces and cards within it. But what's very interesting to me about this is you have the terrain is randomly generated. So there's basically these big cardstock cards that they're basically puzzle pieces, and they snap together. And so you shuffle up all of these puzzle pieces, and then when you pull them out, you flip them over, and it's a grid, like a 4x4 grid that represents a part of the dungeon. And so, there might be a wall on the left, an open area on the right, 2 crypts in the middle. And as you start pulling out these tiles and flipping them over, they start interlocking together and building out this dungeon, building out this battle arena. And every time you flip one over, there's a chance that a monster will come out, or a treasure will come out, and stuff like that. So again, you're cooperatively with 2 to 5 players, 2 to 6 players, something like that, exploring this dungeon, randomly pulling out the tiles. So the layout of it is going to be different every time you play the game. But trying to find this one area that has this one artifact that you're trying to destroy, or trying to destroy 20 monsters before time runs out, or something like that. Really fun games. I'll link all those up. Another one that I want to talk about, again, because this is fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons kind of relates to the role-playing games. And if you want to play like D&D, I would suggest starting in this kind of area, Pandemic and the Drizzt game or the Castle Ravenloft game, and then get into brain froze. Why is it so difficult? What is the game that I love? So the other game that I would highly suggest playing that we love playing is Lords of Waterdeep. So this is, again, made by the company Wizards of the Coast that makes Dungeons & Dragons. And so it's very Dungeons & Dragons flavored. Lords of Waterdeep, it is not a cooperative game. It is a competitive game. So think of like Monopoly or the Game of Life where you're trying to beat the other players around. And basically the layout of the game is the city of Waterdeep. And within the city of Waterdeep, there are different buildings. And each of the buildings has a certain resource that it provides. And so you're trying to collect these resources. And the resources are these little cubes, right? They're orange and white and orange and purple. But they represent different types of factions within the area, within the city. So like orange represents the militia or the fighters. The purple represents the wizards or the magic users. The white represents the clerics or the healers. And the what am I missing? The black represents the rogues and scoundrels and thieves and spies and so forth that are in the city. And so you're trying to complete quests, but instead of working cooperatively to complete quests, you pull a quest card or you buy a quest card, and then it tells you which of these resources that you need to collect. So you need to get 1 purple, 2 whites, and 3 blacks in order to complete this little quest, right? And so you need to put your pawn on different structures within the city, different areas within the city, guild halls and so forth, in order to collect these tokens so that you can gather enough resources in order to complete a quest. And when you complete a quest, it gives you like victory points and or other actions and other abilities to use throughout the game. And one of the neat things is there are a fixed number of about 6 or 7 standard buildings on the base board itself, right? That's available every time you play it. But also there's a stack of extra buildings that you as individuals can buy and purchase, kind of like Monopoly, right? You want to land on Boardwalk and Park Place and buy those, and then other people can pay you rent. Well, you can buy other buildings in the city of Waterdeep and turn them on and activate them. And when they're activated, when another person visits it, it gives them that ability. It provides them that resource. It gives them some benefit for going to that, but it also pays you rent as like an investor in this building or investor in this guild. And so it's really, really cool to have different strategies and tactics, because at the beginning of the game, every person has, again, a different character, a different goal, and those goals are hidden and secret. And so what I'm trying to do is maybe complete as many magic quests as I can, whereas you are trying to complete as many spy quests as you can. And John over here, he's trying to complete build as many buildings as he can. And at the end of the game, we tally up all of our victory points and then kind of flip over what was our bonus quests and what were our hidden quests that we were trying to do, and how do we tally up the extra points that we've gotten from that. So you really don't know who's ahead or who's behind until the very end of the game, when the game's over and all the rounds are done. The rounds are completed, and then you kind of go through and say, okay, well, yes, I did have all these buildings, but these buildings didn't mean jack to me because I really needed to get the magical cards, the magical quests in order to get victory points, and unfortunately, I couldn't acquire any. So those are 3 really fun games. There's also, there's a ton of them. There's Settlers of Catan is a huge one. I'm not going to go into detail on the rest of these because we're way over time here, but any one of these that you're interested in, let me know, and I can talk in great detail about any one of these games. We can have whole series on Being Unplugged if you want, about different board games and strategies of board games and strategies of role-playing games. But I think I'm going to wrap this one up. And then next week, we're going to come back. We're going to get back into so we're playing a role-playing game. We're going to kick off a campaign. And what do we need to do? Now that after today's session, we've learned how to get the right group together, the right personalities, the right types of, play these board games and figure out who likes what type of personalities like different types of games, what type of people are going to work well together, which is a great point, which I didn't point out earlier. But certain personalities. Some people are going to be awesome when they're playing with you, but when you get these two people in a room together, it's just like fire and gasoline, right? They just don't mix well at all. And so finding the right group of people that are going to play the same type of games, have the same kind of objectives, and great personalities that mix well together, that's the goal for what we've learned out of this episode. When we come back next week, we're going to be talking about now how do we actually start defining the role-playing game? How do we start building the game, our custom game, the way we want? Or do we need to build a custom game? Or are there games off the shelf that we can buy into? All right. If you got any questions, you can hit me up in the Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. You can send me an email, chat@hellotechpros, Twitter, at Chad Bostic or at hellotechpros. You can just Google me. You can figure it out, or go to, what did I say it was? hellotechpros.com/155. That's the show notes page for this episode. I'll have all the links. If you want to buy these, you know what? One of the things that I do is I link up all of these games, all of these books, all of the resources that we talk about on this show. I actually put the links to those in the show notes page. And then I have an Amazon affiliate program where if you want to support me, if you want to support this show, instead of just going out to Walmart and trying to buy these games or going to Amazon directly and buy these games, if you go to my show notes page, hellotechpros.com/155, if there's a game that you're interested in or something that you're interested in, if you click that link and then go to Amazon and purchase it through there, Amazon gives me a little bit of affiliate money as a reward. So if you want to support the show and you want to buy these games, that's a great way to do it, and I really appreciate that. You've been listening to Chad Bostic, and next week we're going to be talking about more in-depth role-playing games, how to create your own scenarios, your own campaigns. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/154. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Sunday being unplugged, but tomorrow my featured guest and I will get fired up and ready to face the week with Motivation Monday. On Tuesday, we'll be discussing productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and back again on Sunday to get unplugged. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.